Well, we're here with Richard Burdick for session 13 of our Numismatic interview. And Richard, we've been talking about the Foxfire Collection. Last time we touched on the fabulous 1797 half dollar and the history behind that coin. And what other memorable coins do you have from the collection?
There's so many, it's hard to pick one, but 1796 quarter. I always heard back in the 70s about there was actually a hoard of those that came out of the Colonel Green collection that was sold off in the early 1940s by
Is
B.G.
that the
Johnson.
is that the one with the guy that was going around that had in pages he had the BUs and the proofs, and the BUs were $50 and the proofs were $100. The proofs were the PL ones. I've heard
I
stories
don't
about
know.
that from the
I don't know
40s.
that specific story, but I do know this: that one dealer that I got to know, I first met him at the 1969 A&A in Philadelphia. I started buying coins from him, and he told me that there's an old legend that there was. Well, a lot of us knew about the supposedly hoard in the Colonel Green collection, but he said Abe Kossoff would go to St. Louis. The dealers would ride around the trains around the country before it got fashionable to take airplanes. Jim Kelly would make the circuit, and Tobias told me that some of these big time dealers would go to St. Louis, and B.G. Johnson had so many 96 quarters that he gives several of them to him. Pay me later. So Herb Tobias told me that there was a small hoard of them in New York City. That Abe Kossoff was from New York City at that time, so he would sell these guys. I found out later, supposedly somebody on Wall Street. So I talked to Lester Merkin about the 96 quarters, and he verified that. I wouldn't tell me anything about it, but he did verify that he knew of a little cache of them. So 2 or 3 years later, I was in New York City, the Metropolitan New York show, and I go up to Herb Tobias's table, and he's got 3 1796 quarters in this case, all lined up. And one of them was $12,500. Next one was $15,000, and the best one was $25,000. This is 1973.
Wow.
Those are moon money prices for those coins. And Lester said he wouldn't ever pay he wouldn't pay $10,000 for any one of these coins. So years later go by, and I'm at a show in Chicago, and I met he's a collector from Kansas City. I don't know how we got on the subject of 1796 quarters, but he said he had one in his pocket. He pulls it out, and whoa, this coin's really nice. And what made it even better, it had a fully struck head, which is maybe less than 5% of 96 quarters have got full heads on the eagle. And I needed one for the Foxfire Collection. And I'm probably not going to find one much better than this one. And I told the guy, I said, look, I got a collector that really needs this coin. We'll pay a lot of money for it. And he said, well, what would you pay? And I said, I think we'd at least pay $80,000, maybe $90,000.
What year is this?
What was that? I'm thinking the mid 1990s, 95. I'm thinking. So I gave the guy my name and phone number. Please, if you ever want to sell this, please call me. So about a year goes by. I never heard from the guy, but I did hear from Eddie Milas. And he knew I had given a short want list. And Eddie knew what I was doing. And Eddie calls me up, and I said, I got your 96 quarter. He said, you're going to like this coin. I just got it from a collector in Kansas City.
Oh.
And I thought, oh my God, why didn't he call me? But he traded. Eddie had something this guy wanted. They did some kind of a trade. Well, I know it's not going to be any cheaper now. So I didn't need to look at the coin. I told him, and he said, yeah, it's from the guy's name that you mentioned. I said, well, Eddie, how much is it going to cost? He said, it's going to cost you $125,000. And that was most money for a 96 quarter at that time, I thought. So I told Dr. Davis, and he said, well, go look. I said, I've already seen this coin several years ago. This is the one we want. And he said, okay. So he gave me some rolls of Cougar ants. And we'd figured out how much it should cost to cover that. He gave me, he says, go get the coin. So I drive to, I think Eddie's office was on Oak Brook at that time. Drove out there and I said, there's your money, Eddie. And he counts them out and he says, no, you're one short. He figured one price and Doctor figured another price. And I said, well, that's all I got. And he said, well, you're going to have to buy one for me because I'm not selling it. I'm going to make, that's what it is. So he made me buy one from him. He did.
Was this before or after you got rid of the 1795 half form?
Oh, this is way after.
Ah, you needed to bring that story back up to it.
I want this quarter. I mean, this is a monster 96 quarter. So I have to pay for a Cougar. So I'm driving home, and I got on that south side of Chicago, where it's always real busy. You know, just not before you get to Indiana. But anyway, I'm driving, and the traffic is terrible. And I'm driving a 1981 280 ZX Turbo with T-tops. I'm driving along here, and there's a semi right here, and I heard his tire blew out. And all I can see out of the car, the truck's coming right at me. And I got to go like this. There was an exit ramp there. There's a guy right here, and there's one of those. There's an overpass with one of those metal abutments, and I'm going to hit that thing. And I just went like this. Fortunately, the truck had moved a little to the left, and I almost got killed. I was actually shaking. It scared me so bad. So it was still another, 70 miles to Dr. Davis's house. And I was still upset when I got there. He could tell there's something wrong. I told him what happened. So, he sat down and he gets the quarter. Told him, and so he gave me a Cougar ant. And I put it in my pocket. He loved that quarter. I mean, who could you not like that quarter? With a full head. Try to find one of those with color and no problems.
The backs come so weak compared to the others.
Well, the head's just dished in on most of them. But anyways, we talked for a while, and I drove home. I got home, I reached in my pocket. I can't find a Cougar ant. It's gone. I don't know. So about 6 months later, Dr. Davis's wife called me up. She says, I was vacuuming out the couch, and she says, I found your Cougar rams. Must have fallen out of your pocket and stuck down the couch. So at least we found it. At least I found it. But that's one of the great. I only, in my lifetime, I only saw maybe 2 96 quarters that I like better. One of those was in a 7-holder. And that's my story on 1796 quarters, how we got one for the Foxfire
Collection. Well, the
Collection.
Foxfire Collection, you had quite a powerful early large cent ensemble.
Well, we had, I focused on the early coins and didn't pay that much attention to the coins after 1840. I wanted to get, the early ones are the tough ones, and that's the real meat and potatoes. So I focused on that, and the other coins we buy, but they were on second, third string, so to speak. Try to find a gem 1793 chain cent. Try to find one. Try to find a gem 1793 half cent. Now when you get to 94s and 5 large cent, they start to become a little more plentiful, but all these coins are tied up in collections. They're not floating around coin shows. So we were fortunately be able to acquire 1793 chain cent, 1793 wreath cent, one of the finest Lord St. Oswald 1794 large cents, and there was an 1814 large cent. Those four coins were acquired in one transaction, and that really put us in overdrive for early copper, because that's some of the toughest ones right there, and that was a fortunate acquisition. And as time went by, there was a Goldberg sale, and I had seen this coin before. It was what was the date on that coin? 1797. And this coin it walked, talked, and whistles. It was so nice. And I had seen that coin in Jay Perino's inventory. I already knew what it looked like, but it's coming up for auction, so I told Doctor, I said, this is the one we want for that type. He said, well, okay, just go out, try to buy it. So I go to the auction. I'm sitting right next to Jay Perino. And Doug Bird's there. This is a crowded auction room for a Goldberg sale. It's a fairly small room, actually. It wasn't like some of the others you go to. So anyway, the bidding goes up and up and up, and there was a couple guys I really expected to go after this coin. I didn't see him bid on it. I bought the coin for $47,000, and Perino looks over at me. He said, "Did you buy that coin?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, that was my coin." He had consigned some of these to the auction. But anyways, we got another really great coin, and it took years to just keep working at this and working at it and keep getting better coins. There was one huge mistake that wasn't my mistake, and I think it was a New York A&A sometime in the late 1990s or around there, and I'm sitting with another famous coin dealer. I'm actually sitting behind his table, and this guy comes up, sits down, and he's got a slab in his hand. He slides it across the table, and the dealer picks it up, and it's a 1792 Half Disme and a 66 holder. Well, that was a top priority coin. Try to find one of these. Actually, we had gone to the
Wasn't there a little group that came out of the Rittenhouse estate? They were
that's
really nice.
I've heard that actually I think a small group of those came up in an auction in 1895. I think that's been traced back, so I don't think it's necessarily, there might have been three in the auction, but I don't know that they didn't tell you how gemmy they were back then. They just say mint state or unk, So I had actually gone to the Pittman sale, John Pittman sale, 1998, and Dr. Davis had given me a limit of $150,000 to spend on that Half Disme. Well, I told him, I said, we'll never get that coin for $150,000. This is going to go for over $200,000. He says, well, that's all I'll pay for it. So I go to the auction. Yeah, it flew past $150,000, past $200,000, $250,000. It was bought by. It was over $300,000. It was bought by a very famous collector from Wisconsin, who you might know, but I'd rather keep it. I'd rather not use his name. I went up to him. I said, if you ever want to sell that coin, let me know. Well, I actually saw it over the next couple of years, and he would never sell it. So anyway, back to the one in New York. This coin's there's three of them in 66 holders, and I had seen at one time all of them, because the one that's that is right here in my hand, that came out of the Floyd Star sale in like 1992 or 3. I think about 80,000, 90,000 back then. But as time got by, Half Disme's just got more and more in demand, especially for nice ones. They're very, very hard to find. So the dealer turns to me and he says, "You got a guy for that, don't you?" So he knew what I was doing. I said, "Yes." And the collector told my friend, he said, "Now I want $250,000 for this coin. That's it." So my friend, told me that. I mean, he said it right in front of me. So I take the coin on memo and I take it down to Dr. Davis. I said, "Look, my cost on this coin is $250,000. I got to make at least $10,000 and split that with another guy who led me to this coin. We want to make $5,000 a piece. And that's very, very fair price for this coin." And he said, "Well, I'm not paying that because I want to pay $150,000." I said, that's not going to work." So I left, went home. A couple of days later, he calls me up and he said, "Well, I've been thinking about it. I'll pay $160,000. I said, "That's not going to work. My cost, it's firm, it's not negotiable, is $250,000. That's my cost." Well, he wouldn't pay it. I told him, I said, "Look, I've got this coin for 30 days. It's not sold. I have to go to Long Beach, California, and I have to return it." So he said, "Nobody's going to pay that much." Well, my friend took it to Long Beach, sold it in the first hour of the show.
Oh, wow.
For, I think, $270,000. Well, that's gone. That coin is, So the next time that coin came on the market, I can't remember what year it was. I think it was past 2005, but it came back on the market. Now it's in a 67 holder. It might even be specimen 67, I think. This is by far, well, there were three coins in 66 holders. They're all nice. The Pittman coin ended up in a 66 holder. And there was another one that came out of, Jeff Garrett handled it back in the late, like 1988. And I'd seen that coin. That was a beautiful coin. So anyways, the next time that coin, Half Disme sold, oh my gosh, it was the best part of $1 million. It traded after that for $1.5 million. And
Did you remind the doc of that when you?
I didn't have to, because he volunteered the information that he said, "Rick," he said, "that was the biggest mistake I ever made, not buying that coin." I mean, he could have made over $1 million. It had the prestige of having, one of the very greatest Half Dismes. And I did it. We got an AU. It was a pretty AU coin. That was the lowest grade coin in the whole set. Like an AU 58 with nice color. But you get one coin that grade, brings the average down a little bit. Really, we had that collection.
Did you ever get a finer coin for the collection? Or
Not a Half Disme, no.
Yeah.
It was late on, and now it's after the year 2000, 2001, and he's thinking, well, I'm getting old, and I probably should sell this collection.
All right. Well, we'll talk about the sale of the collection in our next session.